You're a distinct player with your own musical gifts and style, and we believe that your supplies should reflect that. At the Joyous Bassoon, we offer bassoon reed tools and accessories such as drying racks, soaker cups, keychains, earrings, and more. Choose from products readily available or submit a custom order. If you can dream it, we can make it. The Joyous Bassoon, products as unique as you.
Specializing in the finest assortment of oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and their accessories, RDG Woodwinds serves musicians from around the world. Their employees are all professional musicians who have a deep knowledge of the products they sell. RDG's repair shop has an international reputation with a combined 100 plus years of experience among the 5 repair technicians. Plain and simple, RDG provides excellent products and fabulous customer service. Visit them at rdgwoodwinds.com. They look forward to working with you.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
A podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
I just saw you.
Oh, but is that because you did?
I did just see you.
Oh, aren't you so lucky?
We're in Oklahoma City together for the Oklahoma City University Double Reed Day.
Which was so phenomenal.
It was phenomenal. It was a fast and furious trip, hence why we did not record the dish. If we'd had 2 seconds to pause, maybe we would have.
We were tired.
We were. We did manage to stay up watching Brad Mondo videos that last night. I guess we could have been dishing, but we watched YouTube.
That was an important moment of bonding and self-care.
Yes, I agree. People are like, what is that? If you go on YouTube and you put in Brad Mondo, he's a YouTube personality. It's called Hairdresser Reacts, and it's people ruining their hair and a hairdresser responding. And I call it 0 calorie fun.
That's absolutely what it is. And it is shocking what people will do to their beautiful, beautiful hair.
It's just so fun to unwind. Like, I love it.
So speaking of 0 calorie fun, you had a great idea for this dish, which is talking about the names of our instruments, because this is a phenomenon that happens. People name their instruments.
It is. I was like, what are we going to dish about? And sometimes the ideas flow and we have like 5 ideas for a dish and it's like, ooh, write down those other 4. And then we never do.
Never do. No.
Then there are sometimes it's like, oh, what are we going to dish about? And we're at a complete loss. And I was like, what are we going to dish about? And to be honest, this is pure hypocrisy because I don't name my instruments. Have you ever named yours?
No, but I have a name for the one I play on now.
Okay, what is it?
Her name is Greenbow.
Greenbow?
Greenbow.
Like, is that a town name?
No, she's an oboe, and she has a green stripe on the bottom.
Oh, okay. So
her name is
literal
Greenbow.
about it. Okay.
I'm very literal. If you remember a couple of years ago when my student Ashley Moffitt posted that gorgeous watercolor of an oboe.
Yes.
That was modeled off of Greenbow. And in fact, its title is Greenbow.
So she is a CoverGirl supermodel oboe.
Yes. She is on the cover of IGRS at some point in the last couple of years. I don't remember.
Well, I love that. I never have given my instrument a name. I don't know what it is. I've never felt compelled to do it. I have referred to it as among the most important personal relationships that I have.
Totally.
Like, when I think about at the end of my life, like who I spent time with and who I had my most, impactful formative experiences with, it, at least at this point, will be the bassoon. Like, I wouldn't put the bassoon number 1, but it's definitely in the top 5, maybe
Absolutely.
top 3. That's not healthy.
But very relatable.
And it makes sense why people would want to personify that relationship with a name. Especially, that addition of an abstraction in the form of a name is someone you can blame when they are
Yes.
misbehaving.
Oh, yes.
Well, we asked our listeners the names of their instruments. Y'all love talking about the names of your instruments.
Yeah,
Oh my.
boy, oh boy, did you deliver on this one.
Yes, more than we could possibly get through. So thank you for participating in the thread. We're going to pull some of our faves. I don't know. Maybe we can get through them all. Go for it, Glee. What names do we have in the double reed family?
Well, Nancy Belmont named her Leitzinger Lenore.
Oh, Lenore.
Oh.
A lot of love for alliteration. I did notice. Also, a lot of punny names. Abigail says Kingsley because he's made of Kingswood. So original, I know. It's also interesting how people gender their instruments.
Oh, yeah. Mine is definitely a lady.
I hope there's no psychologist listening in being like, oh man, the projections that these musicians put on their instrument. I bet they'd have a field day. Someone's going to write a master's thesis about the personification of the instruments that musicians play.
So Dr. Oboe Hobo says, Darcy, always been a fan of Pride and Prejudice, especially the TV adaptation in the 90s with Colin Firth as Mr. Darcy. First of all,
Rebecca, we have to have talk. Go ahead. Galit, I cede the floor, but I will be coming back to give my comments.
Alan Rickman is the only Darcy.
Incorrect. Matthew McFadden is the superior Darcy. I literally championed the hashtag superior Darcy. Do not be talking to me about Colin Firth or any other inferior Darcy. Matthew McFadden is the best Darcy of all time. I will die on this hill.
Okay, well, we should move on before we burn our friendship to the ground.
It will be Jackie Wilson Hill. Here she lies defending her ground that Matthew McFadden is the best Darcy. Bassoon Friend says, I call my bassoon grandpa, kind of a Peter and the Wolf reference, but more because I feel like the bassoon would be the grandpa of the woodwind family. Yeah, and I love the idea of the bassoon squawks and they're like, grandpa.
You're not allowed to say that. Maria says her oboe is Loretta because she's a Lorray. Everyone told me my instrument had to be male because I'm a girl, and they were wrong about my instrument, not me.
Okay, Melissa Bosma, a friend of the podcast. Love you, Melissa. My English horn is Meredith because she's dark and twisty, which I don't know. Is that a Grey's Anatomy reference?
That's from Grey's Anatomy, yeah.
Oh, okay. My oboe is Marshy because it felt like blowing into a marshmallow when I first played it.
Is that bad? I feel like that's bad.
No, I think it's probably good. She was probably it feels like blowing into a marshmallow. I'm going to call it marshmallow.
Like a delicious marshmallow.
Yes. And she also has a student who named their oboe Sandwich. I'd love to hear the rationale behind this choice.
Marissa Oligario, friend of the podcast, calls her bassoon Mr. Batsoon. It's a 10XXX with black lacquer, and I got it summer of 2012 when The Dark Knight Rises came out. I love a cultural reference.
Yes. I think we have two oboes named Camille.
For Sanson?
I assume after Sanson, Will and Eve both named their oboes Camille. Maybe they're long-lost twins.
Yeah, maybe they need to have, maybe the Camille's need to fight to the death to see which one is the best Camille.
Amelia likes to name her instruments after food. My English horn is named Pear, since the bottom looks like a pear.
Cute.
And for some reason, I named my 6th grade oboe Pancakes. So my Lorray is currently named Crepes, which of course are French pancakes. I think Amelia's hungry. She's crying out for some snacks. Maybe there's too many rehearsals over mealtime, and poor Amelia.
Can somebody bring Amelia a snack, please?
I have named my bassoon Extra Toasty Cheez-Its.
Let's see. Alex J 108 says oboe is named Oswald the second because it is the second oboe I've owned. Another literal person.
Oswald the second. We have some fancy names.
Yes.
Okay, we also have Michael's oboe's name is Tallulah Beauregard.
Oh,
Because she has a soft, dark, focused upper third octave resonant of a classy Southern woman from old money who loves gardening and charitable work. I love it. And Michelle's bassoon is named Tsar Reginald Bassoony the Fourth. So we have some bougie instruments, and then we also have pancakes and sandwich. So I'd love to see these all, Tallulah Beauregard and pancakes in the same section. I think we need to see that.
wait, but we have to end on Crackolicious. This is by Ethan, because in the first 2 months of owning her, she cracked 3 times. Luckily, the manufacturer was amazing and sent me a new top joint. The name remains, as it should.
Same owner's English horns named Helga, because she was an amazing coach I used to have that I could never understand how thick her accent was. The big sound of my English horn makes me think of Helga and her passion for gymnastics. If your English horn is thick, tough, and passionate about gymnastics, name it Helga. Have the Double Reed Dish co-sign to do so. Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH, all caps, no spaces. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at chemicalcityreeds.com.
Consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com. We are absolutely thrilled to welcome Fei Xie, Principal Bassoon of the Minnesota Orchestra, to Double Reed Dish. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Would you start us off by telling us how you started playing the bassoon?
So the way I started bassoon was kind of random. I started my music training when I was about 3 years old on piano, and my whole family are musicians. My parents, my uncle, my aunt, they were Peking opera musicians. So I grew up with traditional Chinese music at home.
That is so cool.
Yeah, but when I was about 2 years old, my uncle came back from college. He was learning composition, and he was just playing with me, and he played notes on the toy piano. And for some reason, I could name them. I can actually sing the pitch. And he said to my parents that I should learn piano. So that's how I got started. Learning piano at 3, and like all the Chinese families dream that I'll be a concert pianist. So I tried that for about 9 years. At the age of 12, I was on my way to middle school. So we decided to audition for the music school in Beijing, Central Conservatory for Music. And I went to take a couple lessons with a piano teacher, and she said that I was not going to get in that year, not good enough. So she said there are a couple things you could do. One is that you take a lesson with me for a year, and we'll see. The other will be try to audition for woodwinds or brass, because at age of 12 you can start a new instrument. You don't necessarily have to know how to play it. So I really wanted to get into school, and I don't want to hold another year in my grade. So we decided to try that wind route. We went to meet some brass faculties, and they kind of checked me out look at my lips and say, we don't think you're good to play brass instrument. The setup just doesn't fit. I felt like at this moment, I felt like, oh, they're checking out like animals and horses or something. Look at my teeth, see if it works or not. So it's like, we're like, okay, fine. I think they didn't really have any openings. They're giving me an excuse, but maybe just my setup is not right. So we didn't really have time to go, and we didn't really know any woodwind faculty. So eventually we just decided, just go in there. I applied and I went in, played piano, and hoping that if somebody will have an opening and show interest. So after I played piano, there was a lady that asked me, so what do you want to learn? I said, well, whoever teaches me the instrument, I'll learn the instrument. I just want to get into school. She said, well, do you know what bassoon is? I said, sure, I do. That was a lie, actually. I did not. I did not know what bassoon was at the time. I don't think I even really seen much of a classical concert, like an orchestra concert. I've seen Vienna Philharmonic New Year's Eve concert, but that's about it. And I've never really pinpointed what instrument is what. So she said, well, okay, well, if you want to learn this, have your parents come in tomorrow with you, and we'll see. I said, sure. So my parents came, and the next day with me, that's when I first saw the bassoon. And I was like shocked. I've never seen something like this up close. And
you're like, what?
All bundle of woods and she putting it together. It was like, okay, it was taller than me, almost. So she played, and I just really loved how it sounded. It was mellow and it was beautiful. She was playing something slow. It was kind of soothing, and so the teacher said, well, so this is a bassoon, are you interested? My parents are not immediately on board with this. They still think I have a shot to be a pianist. But I said I want to learn this. I don't know if it's because I wanted, just leave home, go to a boarding school, or I just wanted to get into the school. But I said I want to learn this. So that's kind of how I started to learn bassoon. I got into the school now knowing the instrument, while everybody else, like my classmates, they already had about at least a couple years of training before they applied. Yeah, so that's my start.
That's so interesting. So obviously things went well learning the bassoon. It really resonated. Yeah, it seems to have been a good choice. Can we hear about maybe, I don't know if this is a romantic sentiment, but falling in love with the bassoon and deciding you wanted to pursue it professionally, and maybe walk us through your training and educational journey?
Yeah, so I when I first started bassoon, it was kind of rough because at any wind instrument, it's not a natural thing to do. We don't normally breathe like that. And sometimes I think about when I go to education concerts, I show kids, this is what I do to make a living. For about an hour and a half or so.
On a good day.
On a good day. So I start out, first playing on reeds, and it's an uncomfortable sensation. For playing piano for a long time, you never encounter those kind of feelings. Mm-hmm. And then, I was making music at relatively higher level, and then I go back down to just play a note.
Oof.
So that's kind of, it was not very satisfying, and I would constantly get lightheaded. I feel like uncomfortable. You feel like I'm gonna pass out. So that initial year, I would say, it was not great. And then we have exams at the end of the school years. Of course, you have to participate. And I was at the level that was much lower than everybody else. And the things that school do is actually, you have a final exam, and they post the grades in the board, on the board. Wow. So everybody, all the kids, can come to check the grade, and you look at alphabetically, my name's always last, but grade-wise, my name was last as well. So it was kind of sad, and kids at that age in a boarding school not really exactly friendly. Sometimes they're like, hey, make
It's a
sure
terrible 12, 13, 14. It's a terrible age group.
right, exactly. So it was, I had somebody, I was playing soccer with a friend. He was a friend now, he wasn't very friendly at the first year. Together, I was trying to, get the ball from him. He stopped the ball. He said, well, why don't you just make a good sound out of the bassoon first and then come play soccer with me? And that really hit me. It's like, you're in this environment where everybody is much better. So I got to kind of push myself a little bit harder. But one good thing is that because I start from fresh, I didn't have much detours. I started out with a very good teacher, very good education from that sense of the learning bassoon, and also I had very strong background in music to begin with. I can read music really well, and as soon as I start to be able to play scales, play things well, I wanted to jump ahead, start playing sonatas and play good music. So I kind of progressed rather quickly after a year, and I can start playing music really well, and that's kind of helped me. And I made friends, and then the guy who was saying that to me turns out to later became a very good friend. And I sometimes I tease him about what he said, because you pushed me to be like where I am right now. So that's kind of how I started my early education on bassoon. And
His bullying made me better.
It was. It was.
Send him some comps.
Yeah. See what you did to me.
How do I sound now?
How do I sound now?
Right. So that's kind of start out was not very easy, but it got better rather quickly, and so fast forward when I get to high school age, I was on top of my class. My grades were always number one. And then when I graduated, my grade was number one for the entire wind class, not just bassoons. So my teacher was always kind of wanting to push me to go study abroad. He said, I think I can still teach you, but I think you need much better education. So we started looking for music schools, and that's when I applied for Oberlin in my senior year in high school, and got into Oberlin. But there was a little story about this that was actually interesting, was that back then when I was in China, I didn't have a computer. My English was very minimum. But I wanted to apply for college, so I started to look online, look for Oberlin, all these schools, and I know somebody went to Oberlin saying, it's a good program. So I said, okay, it was the only school I applied. There was only one school, it was Oberlin. And I eventually found Oberlin website, and I wrote a broken English letter. But on the to column, I wrote to www.oberlin.edu. Rather than anybody's, email. I keep bouncing back, and I couldn't figure out why. Eventually, I asked some friends to kind of look over. It's like, that's not where you sent your email. You have to find the person, and it's George Sakakini at oberlin.edu.
You're like, that is not made clear.
Yeah, I was like, well, nobody is telling me. How do I know? So I wrote him an email, and he saved an email. He years later he would show me the email. I said, well, look when you started, and look where you are right now.
Oh.
And he said, really important thing for him to decide to take me was that even though I really didn't quite understand how everything worked, but I did everything on my own. I tried to email, I tried to contact, ask about what I need to play. I did everything on my own. And he was really happy with that. He sees that that's showing a quality that I can make it here. I can, I will face a lot of challenges when I come to study, but I will try to figure it out on my own. So
I think one of the big myths of our field is that our heroes are amazing and they've always been perfect and they've always just been right at the top and they've always had it like, just this straight shot up to the top, and it's really inspiring to hear you talk about struggling early on, because it breaks that myth of it was always sunshine and rainbows. And then trying to get to Oberlin, the struggles that I'm sure you faced once you got here. It's really inspiring to hear about that. So I thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah, sure. I had a lot of struggles throughout my whole career. It's one after another. But I think those are the things that kind of help us grow, help us mature and have a better understanding, and also have a better mentality, how you face these kind of things. And that can translate into performing, because, constantly we're trying to prove something, and it's not always easy to be able to do things that you want to do. But I think as long as you try your best and be prepared and feel good about yourself, then I think that's more important than pleasing other people.
Would you talk us through what happened after Oberlin, maybe your journey toward your position in the Minnesota Orchestra?
Sure. So when I was at Oberlin, there was a year George was on sabbatical, and we had two different teachers that came to teach us. One was Nicolas Custer. She did a semester, and the other was Carlo Colombo from France. So it was a changing of teacher, and then I remember we're talking about auditions for orchestras, and I think at that year, my junior year, there was opening for Los Angeles Philharmonic, and it was Nick encouraged me to send a resume, just give a try. And she said, you got to start early. So I did, and I did quite well at the audition, but I didn't win. But I think it's then I started to realize that what I wanted to do is be a professional orchestral musician, because I have fun playing orchestra, playing different repertoire with different conductors, different people. I like the feeling of a group making music together. So I started taking auditions, and at the same time I applied for summer festivals. I went to Music Academy of the West and studied with Ben Kamens, and it really hit off. We worked really well together. So after I graduated from Oberlin, I went to Rice to study with Ben. When I was in Houston, there were some opportunities for auditions, including Houston Symphony. But then I ended up getting the second bassoon job in Houston Grand Opera while I was in school. I think quite a couple of Rice grads held that job after I left.
No surprise there, honestly.
Yeah. So I did that. I did the opera and school together in my second year, which was tough. I have to manage to be able to fit in the schedule, but still have this professional work to work out. After that, I graduated and I stayed in Houston for another year, and that's when I got the second bassoon in Baltimore Symphony. So I left Houston in 2008, and I think I played in Baltimore for about 3 or 4 seasons when they had the principal bassoon opening, and there was a national audition, and I won that audition, so I started playing principal in Baltimore. And I think it was in 2017, when Minnesota Orchestra had an opening, I came and won that job, and that's where I am now. So yeah, I had about three different jobs now in 4 different positions, but it was not easy. I lost many auditions before. Some of them is just like, oh, this is great, and then I remember specifically there was an audition in Oregon Symphony years ago. I went and I played the first day, preliminary round. I did not advance. But, of course, when you go to auditions, you see so many of your friends there. But I booked my tickets and all that stuff already, so I decided just to stay and hang out with my friends. And the next day, we organized going to Chinatown to have dim sum together.
Yum.
There were about maybe 7, 8 of us, and we sit down, we start talking, and like a couple of minutes into it, I find out I was the only one in the group that did not advance to the next round. And everybody advanced. I was like, oh, this is great. Is anybody taking my meal today? Just make me feel a little better.
Like a man when he's down.
I know. But it was good, because I think it's about when you take auditions, when everything you do is right, in the end, it's about a right fit of, with the group. I think it was a month after that, I won Baltimore. I think it was even on the same read.
Did you text all those people immediately?
Well,
remember that time when you all advanced and I didn't?
I just want
the thing about, I think, at least I know for bassoonists, we're all very supportive of each other. They all felt bad and they were really happy for you when you do well. And that's why most of my friends are bassoonists. We're all kind of in a support group together.
The auditioning bassoonist support group.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that's my kind of my route and how I end up getting into Minnesota Orchestra.
Okay, I've got a few questions. So obviously, I understand what you're saying, that everyone as an auditioner has ups and downs and successes and failures. Nonetheless, you did win no less than 3 auditions for some pretty big bands, right? So I can assume that along the way you've learned some strategies for audition preparation, and I wonder if you would share what you learned along the path with us.
Sure. I put in a lot of thought about this thing. I can start from the earlier stage when I first started taking the auditions. I always thought, they gave you the rep, gave you the list, go learn it and play. And I did that, and sometimes it turns out to be good, sometimes it's not. And I feel like I can play the bassoon really well. What's wrong? What is not there? And, until I start playing in the orchestra, in a professional orchestra, and you start realizing it's not just about if you can play the excerpt. It is how you sound it when you play to the committee members, because good percentage of the committee are not bassoonists. Mm-hmm. So they're listening from the point of view of the piece. Mm-hmm. They wanted to hear if you sound like the piece. So at the earlier stage, I realized that what I need to do is to be really prepared and really study. I think the amount of work you put in, not just playing, not just to learn the excerpt, but to understand the piece, to understand what happened around you, that's very helpful. And I think as audition committee, you wanted to hear somebody who is experienced. Doesn't matter how big, how small the orchestra is. You want somebody who has experience. Or if somebody doesn't have the experience, they can trick you into that they know the piece, right, to make it sound like they know the piece. And that shows that they're a quick learner and they know what it takes to sound well in the group. So that's, when I start early on to take these auditions, that's my mentality. I prepared excerpts, I learned the piece, I learned the background of the piece, or the composition, or the composer's other pieces, just to get an idea. And I really try to think. Sometimes, we think we're playing a solo, but there's somebody else is playing something else with you. Rather than me thinking of my solo, I'm thinking of the other person's too. So just, it will get people to think that, okay, this person knows what's going on here. That's what people want. They don't want to, nobody really wants to have somebody come in and you teach them every rep that you're playing. Because you come in as a colleague. Nobody's supposed to teach anyone anymore. You do learn from your colleagues, but you don't want people to constantly tell you, hey, you need to do this, you don't need to do that kind of thing. So
That's such a good point.
So, I think it's important to kind of, arm yourself with knowledge and with, the correct styles that you can learn. But then later, once I have, when I had a job in Baltimore, after a few years, I've done all the rep, mostly. You look at the audition list, you know how to play them. At that point, my mentality was to really make myself happy with how I played, and if that line up with what a committee is looking for, that's perfect. And if I end up in a job where I have to change so much of how I want to play, it's not going to be good. It's not, it's already a very stressful job. You don't want to constantly have to change things to please other people. So I just thought, okay, I will do my best to make it sound like how I want to sound, and will let the committee decide if they want to pick me or not. So that's kind of my 2 stages of preparing for audition. Both preparing it and mentally preparing how I want to be. I've lost quite a few auditions. I've learned to let it go after it because it's not for you. Then you don't need to think about it. Don't make yourself feel bad. Don't beat yourself up. Just, you can only play best how you want to play, and just let other people to pick who they want.
My next question, so you went from playing second in Baltimore to playing principal, and we think of those as 2 really distinct roles. I wonder about how the audition preparation, or even just doing the job, is different. If there was, a leap that had to be made, or do we overthink it and they're not really that, different of a thing? So kind of, the transition from being a second bassoonist to being a principal bassoonist, and what's important about each of those roles.
Right. So my first job in Houston Grand Opera, well, that's not really my first job, but it's my first, very professional job. I won the audition. I start on the job and realize that I have a lot of challenges. You have to play the low register really well. You have to read and respond really well. You have to be able to play really soft and match other people and constantly listen. And that's when I realized that I'm pretty good bassoonist at a certain register, not at another register. So that got me thinking, I want to be a bassoonist to be good at all registers,
right?
To be able to master the instrument. And I don't want to, one of the things that, sometimes you sit in there, you hear somebody plays, they're like, oh, that really should be your part because it's low for first bassoon. But I think, as first bassoon, you should be able to play low and high. You should be able to play everything. So playing second bassoon actually helped me to develop my lower register, to help me to have understanding what a good second bassoon need to do to help the first bassoon. So when I become a first bassoon, I know what I need to do to help the second bassoon too, and I know how hard the second bassoon job is, and I appreciate what they do to help, because they don't really get appreciated much. When you get this big bassoon part in this concert, and the first bassoon get a bow, and the second bassoon just sitting there. But
like, thanks for holding it down, bud.
Right, exactly. And that, because I've been there, I appreciate what they do, and nobody really noticed it, but they help you to make you sound better. So the transitioning between second bassoon to first bassoon, for me, it was more of getting to know the instrument really well on all registers, and to be able to play anything. And I think a good second bassoon player doesn't mean that they just play quiet and soft. They play really musically too. They try, even just a couple notes. A good bassoonist is a good bassoonist. A good musician is a good musician. They have a bar. They play with a lot of meanings, a lot of passion to it. So I think that's important. Doesn't matter where your position is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, not our last question of the interview, but my last hogging all the questions is can we hear about your audition winning your position at the Minnesota Orchestra? What was that day like? Like, can you just take us back into your memory and walk us through that
Yeah, I want to hear about your victory lap.
Yeah.
All right. So, for Minnesota Orchestra had 2 auditions for this position, and they had the first audition, and there was no winner chosen. And then they had a second audition. I couldn't come to the first audition because I had schedule conflict.
That's why they didn't choose a winner. You know what I mean?
Oh, it was yours.
I wouldn't say that, but I think it's just, audition is such a weird thing. You have so many well-qualified people come in, and it could be just not their day. I believe there are many people who could have won this job, but it just happened. It's not their day, or it's not the committee's day, or just the setup for some reason didn't work out. So the second one I did go, and I played. I started in the semifinal round, but they wanted to hear people again in the semifinal round. So I played 2 semifinal rounds. And then in the final, I played another 2 rounds. So they had played 4 rounds. And at the end of it, we were playing like Mahler 1, play something really soft and slow. My chops are all gone. I'm just holding on, with anything I left. And then you have to play the octave higher and just shaking. I feel like I'm at my, bottom in terms of my endurance. I'm done. If they asked me to play anything else, I'd probably gone. Luckily, they didn't. So we played, and then we ended up having 2 people doing trial weeks. And one of them, it was me. The other, it was my best friend. Yeah. So we both were really happy for each other. He has a very good job where he won, and I was the runner-up. So we kind of look at this as like, okay, here we go again. Let's see what happened this time. So we, both of us came back to play trial week with orchestra. And during the trial weeks, we played a service with orchestra that filled with, 6 to 8 standard bassoon solos. So we played, Scheherazade, we played, Tchaikovsky, Bolero, all these things, just one excerpt after another, but with orchestra. So he came first, and he played, he went back, and then I came, I played, and they called me afterwards. Actually, they called my friend first to tell him that he didn't get a job, because they didn't want someone to hear about not getting a job from someone else, which I thought was nice. And then my friend called me before the orchestra called me. So I didn't answer, and then the orchestra called me, and then they told me that they gave me the job, and I was in the hotel. I was really excited. I was really happy, but then I feel bummed for my friend. But then he called me. He's like, "So have they called you yet?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "Well, congratulations." I say, "Well, what should I say to you? I guess we're even now." He's like the best friend I have, so we're just kind of laughing. He has a great job, so I was really happy. And then I got a call from the bassoons. They're asking me to come out and hang out at the bar just to celebrate. So I came out, and it was just really happy. And people were very supportive in this orchestra, and everybody come to me, congratulated me and telling me how they loved my playing. So it was just I felt really immediately connected with the group here. It's kind of a thing I feel like, and when I play the trial week, I just played the way I wanted to play. There's very small adjustment need to be made, which you do every day anyways, but nothing fundamental that I had to change, so it just felt like a right fit. So I decided to move here. Yeah.
I love that story. It's, a win-win. It's either you or your best friend,
Exactly.
So I imagine that there is a difference between preparing for an audition as a student and preparing for an audition as the principal of a major American orchestra. And I'd love to hear how that affected your preparation process. Was there, like, talk us through how you navigated working a very demanding full-time job and preparing an audition, a major audition,
Right.
and what advice you might have for students who are working to prepare for auditions.
Right. I start with as a professional, I talk about that first. Most of us who's been in the orchestra in this title position, you likely have played most of these rep already. And when I auditioned for Minnesota Orchestra, my thought was that, there's no point for me to relearn these excerpts again. I play them often, and sometimes they are my warm-ups too. Like I wanted to be able to, keep them in my hands and to make sure I can do them anytime, play at any time. So my preparation was just mostly that I need to be in shape, playing wise. I didn't take much of time off. Just you have to be in shape, have enough good reads, old and new, because you're going to a different climates to take in auditions. Older reads might help you better than newer ones. Mm-hmm. And the other, just stay sharp, not pitch wise, but your mind. You have to keep your mind sharp. You have to, when I'm sitting there playing an excerpt on stage by myself, taking an audition, I'm actually thinking that I'm playing the excerpt in orchestra with hundreds of people on stage, and kind of setting that scene for myself. That kind of helps me to, one, be excited about it, and two, just kind of let go. Because a lot of people really want things to go perfectly, but if you play enough concerts, that's not going to happen. Right. It's never going to be perfect. You just have to just enjoy the moment and play it like everybody's listening. Nobody's judging. So I kind of said that part. I know people are judging, but I want to give them an idea that they think that they're just sitting there enjoying, mm-hmm. not judging, not trying to find problems. Mm-hmm. Rather, they're listening to me, to what I have to say. As far as for students or less experienced players taking auditions right now, I've sat enough on enough committees that I realized that a lot of people, they're really still going for the perfection, going for what's marked on the music. Sometimes they go for extreme. It's too accurate. It's not personal anymore. It doesn't. You don't feel the personal touch. You started feeling like math, calculations. Mm-hmm. I see this dynamic. I go boom like that. I see this. I can't hear you. Things like that, and then just doesn't sound like they know the piece or they know what it's about. Sometimes. And my advice would be really just prepare and listen to the piece, not just the excerpts, and play through them with recording sometimes and without it, and imagining you are playing in the orchestra, just overall setting the scene that the piece. I think that's a better way to go, because we're sitting there, we're not looking for perfections, because none of us are perfect anyways. So you want to see who can move you, who can show what they have to say, rather than just music on the paper.
One cool thing that you've gotten the opportunity to do as a member of the Minnesota Orchestra is record the Mahler Symphonies. And so I wonder if you could tell us a bit about that experience, not only the experience in and of itself, but I don't know, recording solo is hard enough. I think about the process of recording as a large ensemble, and it seems so daunting and unique. Can we hear about that experience?
Yeah, so the way we do here is that the first week we do the Mahler concert. And then the second week, the recording engineer comes and we have a block of times to actually just record the whole piece. So at that point, you know the piece really well already. You had the highs that you play the concert, and now you have to come back and to really, finding these little details and, setting the mics. And then what we do is that we do a first run of something, and then the whole orchestra are invited to the booth to listen. So, the section come in, they hear this, okay, this is good. I hear that, okay, I'll do a little bit of something different. So we mark our own thing. And the conductor, Osmo, he marks his thing, and they come back, we talk about what we want to do differently. And it's sometimes, the pressure is higher because, you play something and everything's so good, and then you make one mistake.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, the whole thing had to start again because of me, But so we do a couple takes, and sometimes something they don't catch, but you're like, you kind of quietly raise your hands like, excuse me, can we do that again? I didn't get that one perfectly well, and they're like, okay. But sometimes we have a very good recording engineer from BIS, and he just listened. He's like, we have a good take, no worries, and then you go on to move on to something else. But the whole week, it's a lot of work, a lot of stress, and at some point you just kind of like, just the first take was better than the following takes. And like, I wish the first one would be just done with and move on. So it's a exhausting process, but it is satisfying afterwards. You listen to the whole product. You listen to, how you did it. It's like the piece much better than just play the concert. And then you listen to without music, who's doing what, and just, it's great. And you have other people listening to it. I buy recordings and send to my families and be like, listen, here, that's my note. Like, okay. Like, I'm still listening to the violin solos. You're coming with this one loud trills, and okay, come on. Yeah. But yeah, it's a great experience. And one of the things I'm really happy is, when you're getting an orchestra like this, you can do the recordings and you go on tours and things like that. It just gives a little extra, kind of a sweetness in, doing these kind of jobs.
Mm-hmm. Would you tell us about a favorite memory of a past performance?
I would say most recently is my Mozart Concerto with Mr. Orchestra. What happened was that, when I got in the orchestra, we kind of planned that I was going to play the concerto with Osmo in 2019 and in June. But then COVID happened. The orchestra stopped playing. Not playing. The orchestra stopped playing for audience in the hall in March. And then we had kind of a period of time where we were doing online things. And then I think it was in the summertime we went back to play outside. And then in the fall we went back to the hall to play with, distance and smaller orchestras, but live stream only. Mm-hmm. So my concerto was pushed back from June to December and to later date. Eventually it's set for January. I think it was January 2020 or 21. I can't even remember. The year just went by during COVID.
It's just this vague block of time.
Yeah. So mine was, I think, one of the first few concerts, and it was going to be live streamed. And of course that makes you more nervous because, well, first of all, it's uncomfortable because you're playing, there's no audience. You get on stage, your colleagues shuffles, and then it's quiet. It's nobody's there. After you play, nobody's there. But the preparation for it is you go, okay, I'm ready to play, and there's like, no, sorry, we canceled this concert. So we'll set up for later dates. So it had up and downs for a little bit, and then finally happened in January, and we had the first rehearsal and play, and Osmo called me and said, well, I think because the distance is so far, you're standing here, we push the violin back, they can't work with the cellos. So we decided to change the setup, since it's live recording anyways, they're having camera on me. They moved me in the center of the stage,
Cool.
in front of the winds, and I'm looking right at the conductor in the middle of the stage and the orchestra around me, and that was a great experience because you can hear everyone can hear you, and you feel like you're still in the group. So that Mozart concerto, and I would say, was one of my highlights in my career recently. Also because I had so much time to prepare for it. I wasn't really so busy, doing week by week. So that was a really satisfying experience I had.
So to counterbalance that, live performance is unpredictable, and we always like to hear if our guests have a either embarrassing or funny experience that you've had that you can share with us. Make us feel a little bit, more normal.
Yeah. Sure. There was a recently it was a movie concert we recently played. As you know, like when we play movies, I think it was a Harry Potter. When we play movies, the conductor has their big screens, and then the movie's on top, and then they have click tracks, and then watching the lines, they're lining up everything. It's really challenging. It's really difficult. It takes a special conductor to do that really well. And so it was just a recent one that I played. After the first show, our conductor had to leave for family reasons. So we had a guest conductor came to do it. He's done it before, but not with orchestra, not in the rehearsal. So it's really rocky, but he's really good. He's keeping this together, and we got to this one part, and the bassoon goes on the low, D flat. So you go going like that for an entire page, and the contra goes boom, 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 boom. It's already kind of funny, just to do that for the whole page and really loud, and everybody just kind of look at you. It's like, oh, okay, well, you guys are rocking it. But then that day, this new conductor came. He was doing it in 4, right? And because this is kind of like all of a sudden you start, so he started really fast. So as they're going, and then he realized it was too fast, so he started going down like much slower. So I went, but we couldn't catch it. And then about 10 bars into it, I just lost it. I started like crying, like laughing, and I just could not stop. This was in the concert, and the concert was going like, but I had it down under the stand. I just could not play. I was falling. Everybody around me, they look at me. It's like, what's going on? It's like, I took about like half a minute to regain myself, and I want to start playing again. And I hit the first low D flat, and I just lost it again.
Oh my God.
When you're playing so low, and then you start just like spitting out, and just can't play anymore. And this is like, it was so embarrassing, but it was so funny. I hope everybody was paying attention to the screen watching the movie. It was like a chasing. Somebody was chasing something on the broom. Not paying attention to the bassoon, just turned out like purple and red and just crying and laughing.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
So that was the most recent, most kind of embarrassing and kind of funny thing. I had this problem I think I take from my mom. It's just, normally I'm okay, but once something triggers, like really funny triggers, I can't stop laughing. It will take me a long time, and then the next day I have to really do a lot of mental preparation not to think about what happened yesterday. Mm-hmm. That might happen again.
That's fun. Amazing.
That's a good one.
So we love to close with this question. What advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
I think what my advice will be, you do your job, prepare and really work hard and get in all the details and all that. But I think the most important thing is that just always think about you are pleasing yourself. not other people, because it's so hard to do. You have so many people sitting there. How are you gonna please them? I think the most successful ones will be the ones that they are pleased with themselves and they sound very convincing. People don't have to agree with you, but they can be convinced. If really think this way and, do your best to make yourself happy with how you sounded, I think that's more important than anything else.
That's incredible advice. Fei, this was a delight. Thank you so much for so generously spending an hour with us on Double Reed Dish. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I have fun talking about these things.
But have you ever seen the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice?
Of course, that's Alan Rickman.
No, that's Matthew McFadden, who plays Darcy, Mr. Darcy, the main love interest.
No, that's Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman is from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He is not Mr. Darcy in the Keira Knightley motion picture Pride and Prejudice.
Am I having a stroke?
Possibly.
Wait, do I have to Google this? Wait, Pride and Prejudice, Darcy. Wait.
I rest my case.
Okay, Matthew McFadden. Team Matthew McFadden.
Absolutely. And if you want more high quality Double Read content, tune in and subscribe and rate and, review. We love you. The deadline for joining the consortium is coming up on April 15th. If you have not joined and you want to, you better do that because we're distributing scores in May. So don't miss out on your chance. Galit, who is coming up on the next episode?
Next on the podcast is Sarah Jeffrey, Principal Oboe of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. Jackie, let's end this Matthew McFadden nerd parade.
Go make reads.
Without Colin Firth.